Hello creatives, my name is Renato Francia and today we're going to be doing a 10-minute tutorial on Grid CSS to show you what it does, what it means, and basically all the all the niceties this great tool can actually give you whenever you're developing your own website, your own portfolio or gallery. Right now I'm going to make a simple gallery. I'm going to put the code out there on CodePen, and so you can guys just hack it and just break it and try to play with it as much as possible, because that's the best way to learn is always trying to break things, break it, and then ask yourself, why is this thing broken? Because that's the only way you can think of whenever you're trying to generate a new type of software or whatever. So before I guys start with all this, I just want to make sure this is a 10-minute tutorial. I'm not gonna be covering all of the things that Grid CSS has to offer, but here's the good thing, here's the good news. You can actually have a really good article on CSS tricks that was the complete guide on Grid, and I'm telling you, this is one of the most amazing tutorials I've ever seen. They have also another one on Flexbox, which I'll be doing another tutorial. I think it's going to be tomorrow, but I don't mind. Just want to say, like, this is something that you definitely guys want to have as a tool, even if it's just a simple tool. I mean, it's something that you definitely want to have. So let me just go right into what I'm going to build. Now, I want to build a grid like this, and I wanted to make it responsive, like a simple gallery of images. So for example, if I have a bunch of images here that I'm having, and all of these images are, because right now they're inline blocks, they're going to be put one on top of the other. Now, you could think of a way of doing this and say, hey, by the way, I can just, create some margins, some patterns, and make sure it looks nice. And after that, let's say, for example, I have a image here and say we have some padding, let's say 10 pixels, and that creates this nice layout here, and boom, I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. Now, here's the problem with that. You realize why that is not a good strategy to actually create, because things change, like these things, like even though it's like, wow, it's even responsive, that's actually pretty cool. When in reality, it's not. It's just like, it's taking the images. What happens now if the image changes? Let's say, for example, now it's like 300. One of them is 300, and suddenly everything just goes and everything just you just creates a huge mess in here. So we don't have to. We don't want to create that. We just want to have something that could make things responsive, could make things just make sure we have the right amount of images for, the right amount of container for our images. So before okay, so let's start with the first thing, like what is, the grid. Let's create a grid. Let's make a simple grid like this. Whoops, let me just take the arrow out there. And let's create a simple grid, and let's call this an item, because I want to have items inside that. And let's put the image there. Boom, now we have created a grid. Well, not really, because we have to declare it now. So let's declare it, and this is how simple you create a grid. You just say display grid, and boom, that's it. That's all you need to do. And let's say, for example, that with the previous example, we have a grid of 3. Let's say we want a grid of 4. Let's say, so I think that's 16 units. I don't want to create that much. So let's say I just want to create. I want to have 4 images. Okay, 4 images of 200 pixels by 200 pixels. Right now, the grid is just saying, okay, this is just a block. Every single item is a block because I say so. But we don't want to have that. We just want to say, hey, by the way, I just want to create something that has like 3 columns, just the way we had it before, just with a simple pattern. So let's create this triple column thing, and I think I gave you a huge hint because it's called grid. And let's call this a template, because that's a template, and actually it's a column. So we'll just put it here, a column, and that's it. That's how you create one. Now we have to declare what's the width. Now, here's the thing, when it comes to like grid containers, you can say, for example, 200 pixels, 200 pixels, and 200 pixels, and that's going to be the column there for basically creating your grid container column. And let's call grid template rows, and this is auto. Why is not changing? Oh, I forgot the S. obviously. So let's say, for example, now, okay, this is 200 by 200. Let's say we want to add another column. So now you see here that the grid suddenly changes this to another 4 columns. Now let's say I just want only 2, because I don't want to have all in one place. Boom, 4 actually, but 2 columns basically. So that's exactly one of the powers that the grid can have. And let's say, for example, now we have grid gap, because I mean I think this is just a little too tight. It's actually touching itself. No, we don't want that. We just want to create a gap. So with gap, you have to think like margin is basically up, down, and after that left, right. So we just want to create let's say a padding. Well, not a padding. It's actually kind of like a gap of 15. 15 basically will, if you say 15 here, it will basically create all of it. Just separate every single one of those items. But let's say we have 10. This is going to be left and right. So now it's just a smaller on the left side, but still 15 pixels up and down and 10 pixels left and right. And that's basically it. Just how you create a gap for this. Now, like I mentioned here, I don't want to I don't want to calculate this. Let's say, for example, this is responsive. Now, how am I going to measure this? Fortunately, CSS has something called fractions, and this is FR. So basically, what you do is say 1 FR, give me 1 fraction. Perfect. Now we have 1 column with 1 fraction of whatever the space is available there for us. So now, let's say, for example, 2 fractions. Now we have a space available. So what it does is basically it breaks down the space that we have available and basically give us as much space as we can before the images are breaking. So that's why you have a huge space right here and a little space, even going, when it comes to mobile, it's even going beyond what it should be. But that's exactly one of the things that you need to see, that you can create 1 FR, 1 FR, and just by that you can just create columns, just simple as that, for checking that out. And that's beautiful. So I'm sorry, I just love it when it comes to like that. Before I had to calculate everything with math and it was terrible. I just didn't want to do that. So now let's for example say we're missing something. We're missing, for example, first of all, we're missing a lot of pictures. So let's say let's add the rest of them. Say, for example, I think it's like 2 more. Well, 2, right. I think that should be it. There you go. Now we have 9 grids, and let's actually put some cool item. I think it's called items, and let's put some cool effects there. And let's call this an image, and after the image hover, just a simple image hover thing, transformation there. And let's call this a transform of let's call this a transform of a scale. Let's put it 1.1. I think that should do it. And there you go. You can see that I'm hovering it and it's scrolling up there, like just like a simple gallery would do. And let's say this is just too fast, so I'm going to create a transition to make sure things are smooth and they feel right. Transition, I think it's like 0.5 seconds, linear, null. Make sure it's nice and smooth. There you go. Now that's better. But the problem is, like, look, we still have some problems with responsiveness. Like before, we only had remember that we just did this, and basically because things items were in like blocks, we didn't have to worry about them. So let's fix this stuff right here. So let's create a simple media query here. I'm not going to do for every single one. I'm just going to do a simple one for media query. And let's call this, I think it's a max one, because I'm doing things, I'm not doing mobile first. This is not the way, by the way, this is not the way I would design this gallery. Don't copy this. This is something that you can think of how you're going to be creating things. So let's call it max width, and I think it's 425 pixels. And whatever is in here, so let's say a grid. I want this grid to have, let's say just 1 column. So what was it? Grid template columns. There you go. And now when it comes to like one I mean, sorry, when it gets like below, I think like below 425 pixels, it will turn into, boom, one column with all the items. Now this is still something that I still like want to center them, and I haven't been able to center them with the typical grid containers. So if you're a pro on Grid CSS, just make sure you type something in the comments. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people saying in the comments saying that, hey, that's not the way, you know, like well, or at least the two people that are watching this, that's not the way you're supposed to center items, but that's the way I'm centering now because I don't know how to fix them. And if you can tell me how to fix them, I will be grateful forever. So let's do the item things first, and don't copy this. This is horrible. This is not a right solution. So, but this is the solution I have right now for you, and hopefully this will be kind of like something inspiring you to not do this. There you go. that's a little cheat I do just for, it was not 100%, it was just 200. That's a little cheat I do just to make sure all the items are centered there. There you go. I don't like the fact, now I'm starting to hate the fact that this is like going into almost 3-2, so I'll probably just make 2 containers would make sense by that. So let's try to make another media query for, I think this might be tablets or something like that. Let's see, I think it's 8. No, it's a 4. It's not 425. Okay, let's do like, it's 5 F6, it's 200 each one, so by the time it hits like almost like maybe 420, it's changing. That 425 is changing. So probably like by 600, hits 650 maybe. I just don't have memorized all these query numbers. I'm just trying to make sure. I'm just playing it by the ear right now. Let's try to do this part, and let's call this grid template columns, and this is going to be, whoops, this is not changing for some reason. Am I doing it right? Well, I think it's because it's not changing there. So create templates columns. Okay, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. Just going to copy this. Just going to copy, just plainly copy this and just try to make sure I get, oops, just one FR. And there you go. Now we have 2 columns that are nice. 3 columns when it's large, 2 columns when it's like medium, and 1 column when it's small, coming in all flavors that you can possibly get from CSS. And I did something I wasn't intended to do, but here's a little cheat you can do too, that you can say, for example, change the number of fractions, and you can say like, hey, by the way, that's now going to change the way things, like now you see that this thing is now behaving like it's taking more space, and the reason why it's doing that is because it is taking more space now, like it's 2 FR. And yeah, that's basically like the first part of Grid CSS. I mean, this is not very exciting stuff, I understand that, but this is something like this is something that you should definitely learn how to do on your own. It's gonna help you a lot. Like galleries like this exist. I mean, you can even make the images much prettier. And if you guys want to practice with these images, you just pick some and just using image CSS. I mean, like, well, it's not image CSS. I'm sorry. It's just like it is just a regular image tag that you just put in there, and yeah, you can play with all this, and that's exactly the beauty of this, of CSS. Now, my challenge to you is try to recreate this grid. It's a very simple grid. I don't know if it's taking me 10 minutes. Probably it's going to take me longer, but try to explain to yourself, you know, what you're doing here. What's the case? What are you doing? Try to recreate this code and explain it to yourself. How is this working? And I highly recommend that to read this article for CSS tricks, a guide to complete grid. Just read it, make sure you understand it, And once you have that, then play it still. Like, oh, you can read and play, change it, you know, make it your own. So thank you very much for watching this. If you guys want to see more stuff, I mean, I'm planning to actually add new template grids. I mean, like, make sure that, for example, that it's not only that simple, boring, but also we have other examples. Like, for example, if you get grid by example, you can see that you can create these crazy shapes, or maybe like this. I mean, even headers, sidebars, all that kind of stuff can actually, you know, be created and also be responsive. You don't have to, that's the beauty of it. You don't have to depend on the HTML. Now you can create all of this just using the grid. So thank you very much for watching. Any suggestions, you know, would be appreciated. Any corrections would be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys. My name is Renato Francia, and I'll see you creatives later. Take care.